So you don't use the wrong keyboard?
I don't use the wrong keyboard anymore today. Tends to happen a few times, but yeah, I'm ready to roll. I'm going to hit the record button. We'll jump right into it.
That sounds good. All right, so tonight we've got Suzanne Worthley with us. She's written an awesome book, An Energy Healer's Book of Dying for Caregivers and Those in Transition. And she's been an energy healing practitioner and intuitive who's focused on death and dying for like 20 years. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
It's weird because I didn't even realize it, but it fits in well. Darren and I were at a group mediumship on the weekend, and we had some old lost loved ones come through. So
visitors, yeah.
So it's very interesting to have and be talking
cool.
to you about it. Yeah. So thanks for coming on. I mean, that's I read your book, and it was really gave me a different perspective on that. I mean, I kind of wish I would have read it before my father passed away in like 2003 from a couple of year battle with cancer. But it was really interesting. I enjoyed how people that are in the hospital or loved ones could practice some letting go and all that as well to help the transition. Like gave me a few different perspectives. So I guess, I mean, we might as well just start at the beginning a little bit on how you came to write the book, and then we can dig into some of those finer questions maybe later.
Sure, no problem. Basically, I didn't really even go out to write a book. It didn't start as I want to write a book. It was pretty much, I've been an energy practitioner full time for quite a while now, and at the same time I was doing hospice work. But even prior to that, I'm a mortician's daughter, so I was around death my entire life. I mean, that was normal conversation at the dinner table. So death and dying for me was always kind of like, I didn't understand that everybody else didn't know about death and dying. So to me, that was always kind of puzzling as a child. So when I got into my energy work, which then turned into a lot of different kinds of energy work, including hospice, it just sort of naturally evolved. And the way that the book actually started was I was sitting at bedside with many, many of my actual dying patients and or what we would call clients maybe, and asking them questions telepathically to just get more information. And basically what I was doing was just jotting notes down. And then at the very same time, I was a hospice volunteer for end of life. And so I would bring some of my experiences back to the table for hospice meetings, which then naturally evolved into, I'm just going to sort of put that together in a PowerPoint, which then evolved organically into a whole training presentation. And then it evolved into a book. And so it was just a natural evolution of sharing information. And then the case studies obviously are pretty awesome part to the book because I am privy to so much personal hands-on information from being able to do this work. So I feel really honored to have sat with so many people that are in their dying process. And that I think is a really cool part to the book because it's like literally hands-on.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. I'd like to get into a couple of those cases because it really, for the skeptical minded or whatever, it really shows that there's more to what's going on here. I mean, we can get into the details later, but things you just can't ignore,
I love the skeptical mind because trust me, as an energy practitioner and a presenter and a speaker for all these years and years, and especially one that does paranormal events, etc., I have come up against multiple skeptical minds. And so for me, that's an invitation to learning. I think that everyone has every right to have their own truth. And I have never been one in anything, any medium that I present to say, hey, I'm right, because everyone has their own lens and their own perspective. Yeah. And everybody, especially when it comes to death, gets to have their own point of view, their own belief system, their own God package, etc.
Yeah.
So I'm never here to change that. I'm just here to simply possibly shine a new light on something and expand maybe a potential. So.
Yeah, well, there's certain coincidences and things that happen in your process that you can't ignore either. Right? You have your story corroborated with different people in the hospital room or nurses, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. So what about energy work, and how did you get into, like, what kind of energy work are we talking about? Because you obviously expanded into different areas, but I'm interested in that a little bit before we get into the book.
When I was tiny, I was very, very well aware of the energies in my room. I had literal heads on my ceiling that talked to me when I was a small child. I thought everybody saw the heads, by the way. And they would communicate telepathically with me often. And I was very, very sick at age 5 and 6 with a blood disease, and these so-called heads would inform me that I was fine and that everything was going to be okay. And they never knew what was wrong with me. And this went on for almost a year and a half. And then it just disappeared. I love that. And after the heads disappeared, the heads disappeared after the disease disappeared. And then it kind of lay dormant for quite a few years. I could always own the fact that I was intuitive most of my life, but the psychicness and the crazy intuitiveness came back, oh gosh, really in my late 30s, early 40s. And it came back like instantaneous, like it downloaded to the extent that I thought I was losing my mind. So I was a very happy corporate mother of 4, corporate marketing executive for many years, walked out of my back door to go into my driveway and saw my husband coming across the yard, true story, and all of a sudden could see totally inside of his body and aura and his field and all of his energy blocks. And it was like, okay, what is that about? And then boom, it all came back like massive. So
wow.
It was a little crazy.
So what do you think caused that or triggered it?
I think it was time. And again, I'm not here to tell people how to believe, but I think it was time from a higher perspective to do my real work, what I came here to do.
Yeah.
The ascension process, if you study that at all, is very, very critical right now. And we're at critical points in that tipping point. And I think it was just time to get to work. And I mean, not that I'm discounting by any means being a mother of 4 and being a corporate executive, but it was time to just remember what I know. And it came fast and it came hard. And I literally thought it was nuts, but it evolved. And it took me about 3-4 years of balancing it with my corporateness. And then I finally jumped ship and I left corporate in 2007.
Wow.
Yeah. Then shit hit the fan, by the way, because when I quit my job, my husband got let go of his job.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
We were two corporate executives that were standing in a food stamp line in about 3 months going, I don't even know what just happened. But we rode the tide. Yeah, it was crazy.
So what kind of energy work did you start, did you start learning it or practicing it, or was it your own thing, or was there other programs that you tried? At
the very beginning, there wasn't me that I was aware of out there. So I was very concerned about people thinking that I was going to be weird. So I went off and I tried to take classes. Those weren't really very good for me. I didn't learn that way. I learned this way. I'm very cosmic. I'm very starseed. I'm very multidimensional telepathic. And so for me to go to a classroom situation was not comfortable. And I finally, after a couple of years, just succumbed to the fact that if I would download through meditations, it was just much easier for me. And it was much more genuine. And so my work has evolved tremendously over the years. I've become extremely holographic and extremely quantum and multidimensional. So what that means, if we want to make it kind of simple, is, for example, if I was doing a house maybe 6-7 years ago even to clear a house, I would go room by room methodically and try to see if there was an entity or an energy, and then I would sage it and I would worry about it and I would talk about it and I would balance it. Now I walk in and everything spins like a holographic kaleidoscope, and I do it all like boom, all like that. So wow. It all moves. It moves through the walls, it moves through the floors, it goes into the earth, it goes into the cosmos. So everything is a spin factor in geometry now. So I work very differently than I did even 6 years ago.
Is that still evolving?
Yeah, very much. And I would love to know more quantum workers because the grid patterns are so much more accessible now. And as we move through this ascension process, we're finding that those designated dimensional lines are so thin that you are being able to access timelines, move things quicker, future, past, et cetera, all at the same time. So yes, it's changing constantly.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just had a quantum guy. We were talking about quantum meditation with a guy, and it's hard. It's a tough word, and it's because it sounds like, you're trying to talk about quantum physics or whatever, but it could mean at that quantum level or that holographic matrix that you're talking about. But he was doing this meditation where, you start with your third eye and you build this pyramid down from it, and then another one, and you bring them really, really close, and you're never going to touch, but you're going to get closer and closer and closer, and it really does get your point of focus to a quantum level. And then you build a cube around it, and it started to click to me. Like even just tonight, we read his his answers to some of my questions on the show, and it started to click for me about the quantum thing. So it is interesting.
Quantum is very, like you said, very difficult because I think people fight it with the organic, like quantum physics things that you learn in science, and a lot of this is unexplainable, especially when you are using your psychic gifts and you can't justify or quantify it because it's all happening telepathically. But it is trainable, and I believe everybody has psychic ability, and I think everybody has psychic gifts. But again, everybody can sing, but not everybody can sing.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't sing very good. But I belt it out.
I mean, you're psychic.
If I'm in my truck by myself, I belt it out.
That's not the only place.
I bet you if I ever recorded it though, I bet you it'd just be so terrible. Maybe not. I wonder.
So then record it.
I told you to say that.
You put all these hours
Psychic
into
skills are
recording it.
trainable though, Darren. So you might want to give that a shot. I don't know where you're at with all of that, but they are trainable, and that's why I do some of the events and the tours and the training that I do, because I really believe that every human being has the capacity to open up that skill set. And that, again, is part of the reason why I wrote the book, in terms of we all have the capacity to see these things and experience these things. We're usually just too busy, or we're too scared, or we're too sad, or we don't believe it, or whatever. And so we don't allow ourselves to move forward with that.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Especially with stuff like that. Especially with singing and dancing.
Yeah, it's a tough one. When I was drinking, sure. But now it's but I mean, and then on the other hand, we'll do 400 podcasts just saying whatever the fuck pops into your head. And that doesn't seem to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird.
But I don't know. It took a while to get used to hearing myself talk. I don't know now. I'm going to have to get used to hearing myself sing. It's probably all out of key and shit. I mean, I'll try it. I'll try doing some singing.
Yeah, I've been telling them to get it set up so we can do a little.
The thing is, these days,
here.
it's a couple of clicks and it's going to be on the internet. And then
No, we don't have to do that.
Why don't you maybe do a little singing on the intro for the show, and a little break singing, and then it just evolves into that YouTube phenomenon.
No way.
Oh, I can't handle that.
No way, okay? That's for us only.
Yeah.
Singing is for us only.
maybe the odd karaoke night or something like that. You show up and steal the show.
I can't even do that.
No?
I don't want to be up there in front of people singing.
No?
Oh,
So
Suzanne
then you should do
But
it.
then that Japanese guy goes up after you, and then they're just loving it, having a good time, and it doesn't sound anything like the.
Yeah,
they're
Not at all. Whatever. It doesn't
They're just
matter.
having
I
a
know
blast.
it doesn't. I know. Just
What happened to you?
What you resist persists.
yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll go down to Ducky's Karaoke Bar. I used to love that place when I was drinking.
Go for Bright Eyes. It always takes the crowd down.
Bright Eyes?
Oh my God, that's the one I downloaded recently to sing. I'm serious. We were singing it online for D&D. It came up the other night, and I downloaded it, and I was belting it out on the way.
Well, how weird is that?
Yeah, that was a specific one that I downloaded to just.
Do you have
belt
a
out.
karaoke club in your D&D?
No. It's just my own little.
You guys
private,
singing D&D?
No.
Oh.
It's just my own little private thing. Sometimes the theme would come up and we'd sing it, but that's
All
kind of a
together?
bit of a crazy synchronicity.
You guys all
yeah.
sing together?
He's got a quartet.
Oh, there's some crazy synchronicities popping off today.
I know. There's a lot of synchronicities. It's mind blowing. So I'll sing that on the way home.
Will you? Will you record it?
No, I can't.
I seen today at London Drugs, they have a mic that plugs right into your iPhone. You just hang it from your mirror, away you go. Mm-hmm. You could be the next YouTube phenomenon, over 50 and still singing.
Karaoke started.
Yeah.
I mean, that's car karaoke. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You guys can do this. You can be podcast karaoke.
Okay. We'll think about it.
I just had a couple business ideas.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Let's get off this sidetrack here.
Well,
before
while
I
we're
start
talking about-
sweating too much, I'm going to start.
As long as we're talking about crazy synchronicities, where do they fit into the energy healing dead book?
Okay, I've got one. Seriously, this book was not supposed to be out until March 10th.
Hey, that's my
officially.
birthday.
Pardon?
That's my birthday.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, so cute. I'll remember that and shoot you a something.
Sweet.
I'm going to sing happy birthday to you.
Oh, there we go.
Technically, the book was not supposed to be in hand until March 10th. And wasn't really thinking much about it because I was off doing my Peru tour and my Sedona tour, and got a Facebook message from a gal that I used to know about 20 years ago, and like really, really desperate message, call me, I need you, or I need your book now. And I said, I'm sorry, my book isn't out for another 3 weeks or 2.5, 3 weeks. And she said, I know, but I need your book now, or I need you now. And I was thinking, what the heck? That's kind of a cryptic message. And I hadn't seen this girl for like 20 years. And so then she was on my telephone and leaving me a messenger message audio saying, I need you now because my sister's dying. And I said, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you in 20 years. And I knew her sister way back in the 80s and in the bar days. And I said, is it Laura? And she said, yeah, she's in hospice and she's dying. And I need to understand this because 1 year ago today, my brother, Richie was in hospice dying 1 year ago from the death of this sister dying in hospice. And she said, I can't do this. I'm losing my crap and I can't. And I need you, or I need your book. So what I said is I will come and do hospice with you in person, but I'm sorry, I can't get my book to you until the 10th. No kidding. She literally screenshotted me. 6 hours later, she had my book in her hand. And I have no idea how, and I have no idea why. And I called the publisher the next day, and I'm like, what the heck? She's got my book in her hand. She's like, yeah, I don't have any idea how that could possibly even happen. And sure shit, I went to this thing, and I did hospice, and she is holding my book, and I literally sat with her for 3 hours and walked her through my book as her sister was sitting here dying. And then 2 days later, the parents came in town. And now remember, this is their child dying when a year ago their other child died. And by the way, a third sibling child had died 9 years before that. So 3 out of their 4 children are dead or dying right now. And I'm sitting in the hospital room with my book, synchronistically landing in their lap, teaching them the process of this. And amazingly, this gal was dying. I asked permission if I could ever share this, and I got it, so this isn't infringing on anybody's personal stuff, but she was dying of alcoholism. And if you know anything about alcoholism, you're having the distended liver and the kidney shut down and the failure. It is a horrific death, extremely painful. And we were lucky enough to be doing this work together, and she was so peaceful and so calm. And I'm not taking credit. I'm just saying I know how to do this work in terms of doing a smooth transition to help us to shut them down. And she literally was so peaceful, sleeping while we worked, and she died like 5 hours later. Wow. Her whole entire hospice trip was all of like 5 days. Wow. So that's pretty awesome. So synchronicity of landing in her lap. How's that happen? The publisher's like, I don't even know how that happens. So, right?
That's awesome. And that's a powerful story. And maybe can you tell more about that could kind of lead into your process of your book and how you help people through it. I mean, because it's an amazing process. I didn't realize the whole chakra system was at play and the different levels of letting go and how the people in the room can play a part in that, like letting go of your ego, getting it out of the way and giving permission for them to let go. Like I never even thought that would be important.
So big.
We have a copy of the book somewhere.
Yeah, we do.
We got them out faster. The publisher called me the other day, and she said they're out everywhere, and they're not even supposed to be released. So I don't know if there's bigger stuff going on out there. What happens is when we are literally in utero, the human body is activating their chakra system, and this isn't something we definitely learn in mainstream anything. But basically speaking, we have a sperm and an egg, obviously, to support the vehicle. The soul, if you want to talk about it that way, drops into the situation in that activation of connection from higher self. And this isn't religion, it's higher self. That soul connection starts to activate in utero. And it activates, starting with that crown chakra, and it goes from 3rd month, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this is why we want to go full-term pregnancy if possible, because that root chakra, which connects us to the earth, activates in that 9th month. And when we die, it deactivates the other way. So if we were talking of methodical death, the activation deactivates in the reverse, meaning my root shuts down first, then my sacral, my solar plexus up to the crown. So it's very it's very methodical in terms of if we were to look at it that way. I wrote the book methodically so people can understand. If, for example, we were ripped out of a situation where I was dead immediately and I didn't have that methodical death, something tragic, something horrible, which obviously does happen, this process will still happen to some extent or another in terms of benevolent help, angelic help, whatever you want to call those words. It will still happen somewhere, somehow. So the transition will still happen. But I wrote it in terms of a methodical way so people could understand, if that makes some sense for you.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe get into a little bit deeper of what people in the room can do, or people.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean in the room, because I'm picturing just your typical, somebody's sick and they're dying and they're in the hospice or whatever. So if there's loved ones coming and going and all that, is there stuff that they can do that will help?
Well, there's a really couple great things, and thanks for bringing that up, Graham, because it's really important, because there's so much guilt associated with death. Oh my God, I didn't get there. I can't get there. I can't get on the airplane. I didn't get there in time. I left the room to go to the bathroom. There's a lot of guilt happening around the death process. And I will never forget a family that I did that is actually Latvian. And the Latvian family had the dad dying in the actual home. And all of the Latvian family was there. And they have a wonderful culture that supports the death in terms of everybody comes and kind of like, it's not a party, but it's a sort of a gathering. And so I went out to this family and said the exact thing that you just mentioned, that we need to have a conversation of allowing the dad to die. We need to understand that this permission of death is extremely important, because we humans will make somebody's death about ourselves, because that's what we do. And we don't want mom to die. We don't want son to die. We don't want anybody to die, because we don't want them to go. And that's about us. And what we need to understand in these situations is one of the best things that we can do is to give them permission. Now, that said, a lot of people can't articulate that because they don't have the words or the ability. We can always give permission in our heart. We can do it quietly. We can understand it in heart.
So don't walk in and be like, it's okay for you to die, bro.
Exactly. That's so important. And it's so beautiful. And it is such a gift, because you know what? People get to die. And people hate me when I say that, because they're like, yeah, but you know what? People get to die. Because why? Because we got stuff to do. We got stuff to do. And maybe these meat bodies that we're walking around with are not needed anymore. And these meat bodies have done their job. And there's things that our soul gets to do in other places and spaces. And we get to die. So that's a really tough one for people. I get a lot of flack for that one.
Does it ever come off as like somebody wants you to die?
You mean in the room? Like, I want mom to die because?
Yeah, because you're like, it's okay to die, mom. And she's like, what the fuck?
Well, I think that it would to some extent, possibly in situations, because the actual third chakra and the second chakra would be involved here. The second chakra in our belly is our relationships chakra. The third chakra in our core is our ego chakra. So these two get really messy on people. The first three chakras are the messy ones in the human body. And these are always very confusing, because it's like, this is our ego mixed in with our power. This is our stuff. This is why do you want me to go? This is our relationship and how it worked or didn't work. And so there's a lot of miscommunication going on in there. So yeah, and you know what? There's some really difficult family scenarios out there. And I've sat through some of them in a hospital room, let me tell you. So it's really difficult to all find common ground on belief systems. Belief systems are really tough. And those, by the way, start in the first chakra, in your root chakra, because our belief systems are taught to us from the very beginning when we are growing up. And these belief systems come to us from listening, learning, experiencing, hanging out with everybody under the sun, especially our parents. And this is nobody's fault. I want to point that out. Belief systems aren't a fault. We decide to take them on, and then we breathe life into them, and then we own them. So belief systems are usually the biggest thing to let go of. And there's a myriad of belief systems when it comes to dying, from, oh crap, I'm gonna, go to hell, or I'm gonna lose my stuff, or she's gonna get all the money, or all of those things. So it can go the gamut. I mean, people are messy, and deaths can be messy. At the very same time, people can be beautiful, and deaths can be beautiful. Yeah. It's all over.
Yeah. Can you talk about that belief system case study that you have, where it's the older fellow that you realized he was quite a spiritual person, and his family was completely resistant to that.
family.
Like,
I got to tell you, I have been blessed and honored to do so much energy work, much less hospice work. But when I met this guy, he was in his late 80s, and he specifically asked for me. And not to sound crass, but I don't like doing hospice where I have to chit chat a whole lot. I like doing end of life because that's what I do. I help you die. And he was still like kind of like in the space where he was interacting. So I was a little hesitant until I went in and I met him. And this guy was so cool. And he looked at me, he's like, hey, how's my chakras look? And he was like 87. And I'm like, what the heck? You know about your chakras? And he's like, oh, yeah. He told me he had like 27 books of his past life experiences that he had charted and channeled using a pendulum made out of a button from a string from his sweater. Seriously. Wow. How cool is that? And so he had knowledge base beyond belief. And so when I got to meet him, it was so apparent that he needed information, and I helped him with that. And when I got to know him better, his family thought he was crazy, and that was part of it. They burned his books. It was the saddest part of the story. They burned his books because they thought he was crazy and made it all up. And he was so powerful. He was so incredible. He told me when I met with him that he knew exactly what he was doing when he went back in between lives. I don't think I wrote that. Did I write that part?
I don't think so. I don't remember that.
I think I left this out, so this is a tidbit. He told me he knew exactly what he was doing. And I said, I'm told that I'm supposed to clear all of your karmic debt and anything fear-based so that you can literally cross over at a place of you going straight to work, whereas a lot of us will cross over, if we want to use that terminology, and still have to do some work in terms of releasing fear or educating ourselves, etc. But they wanted him to cross over to directly do his work, and he told me he knew what his work was. And he said his work was to reconstruct the architecture of the gods and the goddesses.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that sounds pretty heavy.
And don't tell me that's probably not going on. How much has the Avengers and all that junk supported our understanding of all those multidimensional gods and goddesses? I mean, this stuff is all weaved together. This stuff doesn't talk about synchronicity. I mean, really? Don't tell me that Marvel doesn't come out with all that stuff to make us go, oh my God, that's so cool. But the reality is when we go, oh my God, that's so cool, we activate that stuff. So he's been busy. He was one of my favorite guys ever. And he would not die until I came home from Peru. I'm like, you've got to die. He was a medical miracle. He's like, I'm not dying until you get home from Peru. And the day I came home from Peru, the next day I went in, and he was hanging in there, and I told him all my stories. And the next day he was non-responsive. I went in, I worked on him for a couple hours, and the next day he was dead.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Pretty cool.
So speaking of miracles, I don't think you covered this in your book, but a question came up for me on, do you think people get stuck not dying, waiting for a miracle or a faint hope of healing, that kind of thing? Like, is there, I mean, I could see, that would probably be where I'd get stuck. I'd be just waiting for some sort of miracle or something, not wanting to die because of that slim chance it's, you may still get better. Like, well, my dad was in palliative care, and we brought him to this Korean healer. I think we had taken him there. After we took him there the first time, we took him there multiple times. But this Korean healer was meditating for like 12 hours a day. And he's in this log sort of cabin in the woods. And we took him there, and he had healed my sister's friend's back injury, like a really serious back injury. And this guy was just by donation only. And he was astounded that there wasn't a lineup at his door. Because he'd come over from Korea, and the skepticism in the area, and that but he would still heal. So he powered up this crystal for my dad, and my dad came out of palliative for 6 months and traveled around California in the motorhome with my mom. So there was always that sort of sense of, could we heal, or maybe we didn't, but I didn't know enough back then to even try. Like, I mean, we tried some different things and all that, but I could see that being, and then when my dad came back, like, how long do you hang on if you've experienced some level of healing? You're out of palliative, which was amazing, for 6 months. Is this it? Is it gonna? But eventually it just the cancer got to him again, and he passed away. And I think it was a fairly peaceful transition. It
should have been if he had done that much work. Yeah. I think that totally aligns with if you read the case study on the wrestler.
Oh,
Rick,
Rick I was trying to think of like which guy he was. I probably know this Rick. Like, is it Rick Flair? Was it Rick Flair? No, it wasn't Rick Flair.
I've got permission from his family too, so I'm just going to say it here. He was the wild Alaskan.
Okay.
Rick. And Rick actually was phenomenal in terms of understanding. There's a difference between what my ego self and my what we would call lower self, and that doesn't designate value. When I say lower self, that just means my meat body self. So my meat body self, my lower self, needs to be in alignment with what we would call my higher self or my soul self. And when that alignment happens, then we know I'm going to die because I'm supposed to die and I get to die. But this egoic meat body always thinks that I need to stay here, I need to stay here. So Rick is probably the perfect case study in that book to understand our egos can understand through the death process that it is time to go, and that actually the miracle healing is me dying. And that's where I got my ass kicked as a healer. I'm very blunt in that particular case story because I was very new. I was a novice. I didn't get it. And I kept getting the information. Oh, miracle healing, problem resolved. And then he died and I was pissed. I was so pissed. And that's when my husband, it's in the book, my husband said, what makes you think that your version of healing is the same as his higher self? And that was like, universe slap. So I think that we will always have this discrepancy between higher self and lower self. Me, as an educational practitioner, my job in terms of everyday, not just hospice, everyday healing practices is to help others understand that that alignment should be happening when we are alive and healthy, not waiting until we're dying and on the way out. That alignment of understanding and surrender and release to higher self should happen when we are here in terms of understanding that message and really surrendering. That was a really crappy word for me a long time ago. Now I finally get it because who I'm surrendering to is my higher self. And so it's understanding that when we're alive and healthy as much as when we are sick and dying. So does that kind of answer your question? Because I think that was a big... Yeah, it does. And I didn't even think of that example when I thought of the question. So it makes sense. Yeah, Rick's story, man, I am telling you, that one completely changed my world. It rocked my ego. It slapped me into humbleness all the way across and back. I mean, that was very hard for me. But, it was good. Yeah. The other thing that surprised me in the book was people having which I never thought would be an issue on your deathbed is having a fear of letting go of the material things, like your home or stuff like that. Yeah, that's huge. And by the way, this is what gets into I listen to so much paranormal stuff too, because I do that too. And it makes me laugh so hard when people are being interviewed for paranormal because they talk about ghosts. And if they don't understand the chakra system, they don't understand ghosts and they don't understand what's going on. So very briefly, not to get a tangent, but that egoic attachment in those first three chakras, if you are egoically attached to stuff, spaces, people, etc., ego, this is when that is the difference between what we would call a ghost and a spirit, because it is an auric and chakra related energy field difference. And so, yes, even this meat body, when it dies, if I still am egoically attached to my company, my place, my person, whatever, or I have anger or I'm pissed or whatever, that will, even though the meat body dies, hold in an auric field and or a chakra field to some extent of a frequency and vibration, which will make me be what we would call a ghost, meaning that I am still based here in the third dimensional frequency. So do you understand that?
Yep,
do you see the difference? Whereas if I am a what we would call spirit, meaning I fully what we would say crossed or I went to heaven, all of those words that people use, that simply means that aurically you have dissolved and transmuted fully back to energy. So that's the difference. It's very distinctly different.
Okay, that makes sense. I've never thought about it that way.
But if that's possible, then you could probably find a way to enslave energies at some point too, and then there would be a lot of ghosts out there that are enslaved souls. Like, does it happen? Is there a way to... Because like when I grew up on the East Coast and there's a lot of battlefields there, and I used to love just walking through cemeteries and all the things there, and it's not like anywhere else I've ever been where those battles had happened.
He's too far away. Can you relay anything?
Oh, really? I'm sorry. Okay, never mind.
No. Say that again. You were talking about enslaving the souls.
Well, it seems like if that was the case, you'd be able to kind of capture a soul at that time as it was leaving or something. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, right? So.
Oh, I got him. Thank you. Okay, now I can hear you. Can you do that again, Michael? I couldn't get any of that. You were like,
you weren't on the mix minus.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, say it again now. Yeah.
I've kind of forgotten exactly. Well, I've said it 4 times now.
Enslaved souls.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
But who's enslaving the souls? Like, so Michael's talking about.
Well, it seems like there's there must be a way to harvest type things. I mean, we hear about these like dark forces that. I mean, you're a vampire in D&D.
Well, that doesn't mean that doesn't have anything to do with like.
It's sucking soul energy, isn't it? That's my question. Sorry.
Okay. All right, that's going to be a tangent. Yes, there is dark energies. Yes, there's dark entities. Yes, in my opinion, with what I work with out there, they do suck soul energy. They can harvest. They can trap. They can do the theys.
And they work in hospitals.
Pardon me?
And they live or work near hospitals, probably.
But the theys can be anywhere. The theys, if you want to talk about that, can be physical. They can be frequency. They can be an implant. They can be all kinds of things, and they can be programs. We basically live in a hologram, so a lot of that is programs, and basically that can come in a lot of different packages. But yeah, there's a lot of crap that goes on in hospitals. My belief someday, if we get our shit together as humans, there will be energy workers walking through hospitals, clearing, because when we die, good, bad, or ugly, all that stays in the room. But remember, all that stays everywhere. You got a bad meeting, that stays in the room. You got a fight with your wife or your husband, that stays in the room. I mean, you got a murder on the land, you build a house on it, it stays in your house. I mean, this is all energy. It's pretty much basic energy and frequency. So it's everywhere. We're just super uneducated as a human race. I mean, we do the stupidest things. Paranormal again. I mean, I have gone to places like Deadwood, for example. Holy bananas. And the energy signatures that are there, and then we plunk something on it. And we're talking all the way back from the early 1800s, and we're walking through it today in 2020. I mean, this is real stuff. And so we're very, very naive. And we can pick that up 24/7. Because why? Because we empath. And we literally take that into our own field, and this is when we get sick and oftentimes die.
Wow.
I was just reading something the other day that said, don't go into the white light when you die because it's a trap.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up. Thank you, Darren, in terms of there's 2 philosophies on that. There's what we would call phantom matrices out there. Again, if we're talking in a holographic universe, there's a lot of those days that Michael was referring to, those bad guys. They will implant a lot of false matrices. In my opinion, as a holographic worker, a lot of those matrices have been removed, and a lot of that false matrix has gone. Me as an energy worker, I've seen multiple times the true white light. I've even literally, with some of my people, gone to the sound frequency, which is really into the light. So personally speaking, I believe that there is a divine light. I believe that there is a divine white light because I see it all the time. But again, belief systems. So if you think it's a crappy white light and you die, you'll go to the crappy place. Because death, just like life, is perceived through your own vision and your own lens of belief systems. So if you think that this is going to happen, you will create that, if that makes some sense for you guys, right?
Yeah, that makes more sense than most things. I mean, I think that's a huge, I mean, there's so many different ways to perceive it, right? Like there's so many people that you can just, 2 people can have the same day, and for some person, they're just having a good time, and someone else is just fucking having the worst time ever because they can just think of all the things they don't have or they're not doing, or, you know, that mindset can be super powerful.
Looking at the same thing.
Yeah.
They're experiencing the same exact thing. And why? It's all paradigm. It's all belief systems. So remember, it's really cool to think of a camera, Darren, when you go like this. And I'm just going to adjust that lens a little bit, right? And I'm going to adjust that lens and love and light, honor, frequency. I get to co-create this, or holy shit, I'm being puppeted. This life sucks. Everything's happening to me. So we're seeing the same situation, scenario, etc. It depends on the lens.
So
yeah, that's interesting to think that the afterlife wouldn't be any different. It's just sort of a continuation of that. Because because I think the way I was considering it is that while I'm here, it's manipulatable because it is like holographic or digital or whatever this simulation thing is. It's not all here. It's all fields and frequencies, and it's 99.99% nothing. But that's interesting to think that. But I always figured that's because we're in some sort of games, or we're in
the
some
material thing is creating that, not the astral.
But remember,
no,
Darren,
not that we've signed into this, and that when you die, you go back to whatever.
Yeah, you talk about
But
that soul contracts quite a bit in your book.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
That game doesn't necessarily stop. And I do talk about in between lives a little bit throughout this, because I think people think when mom is dead, she's just gone. And she's not. A psychic or a medium or somebody like me can talk to a dead person because it's a holographic file system that we can access. It's still continued. We don't, just because our meat is gone, because the meat body is gone doesn't mean the consciousness is gone. So the consciousness experience is still there. And oftentimes it will be maintained in a frequency or a container of similar to how I was here. Therefore, a medium can say, hey, this is that personality, I can get it this way, etc. Many, many, many of my clients, however, that are dead, I have worked with their families for years, and that dead client will progress. That dead client will also progress in their spirituality. They will also continue to ascend. They will also continue to heal and better their so-called soul in between lives. We don't just sit on rainbows and play around with unicorns. I mean, this is like serious shit on the other side of the veil, where we do work on behalf of not only our soul, but the overall creational experience itself. So we don't have this right because no one teaches us. We think we go to some fluffy place or some really shitty place that's full of little devils. And that isn't the way that works. We go to a consciousness place where we have an awareness and an understanding on a bigger scope again, and then we've got way bigger work to do. Is that?
Yeah. I guess is that partly how people get out of limbo from suicide and move on that way?
Suicide I write about in the book also, because I've done many, 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 many suicides in my work over the years, and many different situations with suicide. In my opinion, there are some suicides that are absolutely know exactly that they're stepping out of this meat body because it's time and I am good with this and I own it, and therefore they cross like this.
Yeah.
Other suicides, I'm going to jack my so-called soul contract because I can't do it, and I was supposed to learn here. If you can watch my hands, I was supposed to learn to here, but I check out here. You're still going to have to do this work. You don't get out of that work, okay? So you're either doing it here or you're doing it there. And a lot of times people will say, oh, I have this one gentleman that I worked with once, and he said, my whole family's gone. They're all dead. I just want to be dead. I'm going to kill myself because I want to be with them all. And I said, sweetie, it doesn't work that way. You won't be with them all because your frequency will be way down here. Yes, they may greet you when you cross or come to the light or whatever, but you got a lot of rehab homework to do. So you won't be, hanging out like you think that you will, because those frequencies, again, this is all about frequency. Those frequencies are at two different levels. It doesn't mean they can't come and find him and assist and help, but they're not going to be the same.
But then don't you end up back here anyway?
Karmic return, oftentimes, it depends again, Darren, in terms of, okay, am I going to do my karmic return work by reincarnating into a body and pulling out that contract again with my soul pod or those people, or am I going to do that work in between lives differently? And a really cool thing that I, as a practitioner, have been doing a lot of is actually clearing soul contracts and karma while we are here on earth on behalf of self and others.
Yeah.
So what that means, for example, is if I have the family I talked to that got the book, let's go back to that for a second. If she had 3 out of her 4 children dying of alcoholism, okay, and her family's lineage has alcoholism, the one that's left on the earth plane still, I said to her, you, on behalf of others and self, can do the work for a soul clearing and karma clearing in terms of doing your best to offer that I'm clearing alcoholism in my lineage. What that does is it offers my lineage of back, meaning my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. It only offers the clearing. I can't make anybody take it. It doesn't mean it happens. You offer the clearing when you get into in between lives. So this is huge work.
Is there any correlation between the astrological signs and like where you're at in your progression?
I don't necessarily know if there's a correlation, like meaning I'm a Sag and I was born in such year, and so that means I should be ascended.
Yeah,
You mean
just
like
like if there's different levels of that or something. I've heard different. We've had someone else on the show that was saying that your astrological sign can point to where you are on the ladder of reincarnations.
Really?
Yeah, I
You
can't
know, I'm
remember
going to
who.
be seriously honest and say with all the multitudes of things I do in energy, astrology is not my jam. I don't care.
I don't think we've ever talked about that on the show, but
Yeah, I
Darren's
remember.
a-
I remember because I'm a Pisces, and I was they're like, "Oh, you're almost done."
Yeah, I don't.
Or
I
you
don't
have to
do
work
that.
backwards, so
Ah,
you're just
fuck.
at the beginning.
I'm
I
gonna
feel
be
like
really
I'm at
honest
the
and
end.
say I don't have a clue.
I
That
feel like I've
said,
had
I
enough.
just got my chart read for the first time in my entire life, not all that long ago, by a gal from Sedona who's pretty rockin', and all she did is go, "Who are you?" Because mine is really really cosmic, ridiculous. So I guess there's something to be said about your chart.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Some of those charts
Yeah.
fucking floor me.
Yeah.
Like the last one that Michael Wan sent out, it was like 2 hours long. I was like, oh my God, 2 hours. But then I was just glued to the whole thing because I was just like, how can this be?
Yeah, that's good.
Is Michael
I am
Wan
still
following me
hearing you, but I
around?
couldn't over here because I'm just hearing that my battery is low, but I'm plugged in. So hang on. It's kind of weird.
Can you speak to how, if you're not tied to the 3D, so if you don't have your meat suit, that how you would experience time?
Okay, hang on. I guess this isn't my house. So, oh,
Uh-oh, did it die?
Oh, might have died.
It might have died. It did
Pardon
seem
the
like
pun.
she was panicking.
Pardon the pun.
I think
We
she'll
should
be
help
back.
that.
Was it that died or
You
laptop?
should help that battery in transition.
I think, I swear there's an issue with this laptop.
Why do you say that, though?
Well, when we unplugged the TV, the ticking slowly stopped.
The ticking slowly.
Remember that other laptop when you plugged too many things in, it started ticking. The audio started ticking because it was trying to do too many things at once.
Really?
Mhm.
Well, there's not much
the
plugged
processor
into it.
can't
I
do it
wonder if
fast
I'm
enough.
better off just getting the jack fixed on the original one.
No. I don't know if that's let's confirm your hypothesis before
After
we
the
start.
move?
Yeah.
Okay. Deal.
Yeah, I think that's fine. You don't have anything. All you've got is the.
Well, I
I'm
killed.
here. Okay.
Oh,
Can we try that again?
And
Yeah,
she's
you bet.
back.
Wow.
yep.
Seriously, you guys, this is such weird shit. I was completely plugged in. It says I'm green, and it cut me off. So, what were you just asking me? Because maybe I wasn't supposed to answer it.
That was Michael.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Ask it
Okay.
again. Let's
See if he
it
remembers.
happens again.
Could ask a different question.
No,
Something
go
about
for
an
it. Try
body
again.
and time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think if time is the fourth dimension, and if you're no longer in the physical plane, the third dimension, would you experience time differently? I mean, I
think
guess
that you experience time differently in so many different realms because, like, I'm a timeline worker too, and I think that even when you are a meat body walking around in 3D, you're walking around having a different timescape anyway. Like, a lot of times I'll just squash time or collapse time. So I think anybody and everybody is dealing with time differently depending on what level you're at.
yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing
Like
about
if I'm trying to make it to an appointment and I'm pissed because I'm in rush hour traffic, I just collapse time and then I get there early somehow. It's very
expand
strange.
it, yeah, totally. I do that all the time too. It's wild.
I think that's space travel works.
Maybe can you guys teach Darren how to do that? Because he's late all the time, and if you could just learn how to collapse time like these two, everybody would be fine.
Michael's always late too.
No, I'm not.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that was
I'm always late too, so I'm not always.
Well, it depends on what it is.
Listen, I don't run by your time.
I know
it's
you
not
don't.
going to
I know you
happen.
don't.
All right,
Run
I'm
by
just
the
not.
sun and the moon.
I'm not as evolved as you. I'm just not quite there yet. You guys came over. You
I
brought your
seriously
clocks
think-
with you.
I think time is really weird too, because I was in Shasta a year or so ago doing some work, and talk about time. I was sitting on a rock doing some meditation, and there was like nobody around, and I was gone for like 40 minutes on my cell phone, and there was not one single solitary person in my view. And the second I came back fully in my body, there was like multiple people standing there. So again, where was that? Like, where was I? What was that? So sometimes you start to think you're a bit nutty.
Almost that exact same thing happened to me when I was in Shasta by myself. And I thought that only like an hour and a half or 2 hours had gone by, but then the sun was setting, and I had gone there like around noon or even earlier. So I totally lost like 4 to 6 hours. Somehow.
At Shasta.
Yeah.
Yep.
By yourself.
By myself.
Totally get that, Michael. I do that stuff all the time. Yep. And I go out of body with some friends last year in Monument Valley and did some crazy ass work. We could maybe talk about when you really do crazy shows, where the Nasazi work was. And I was gone for my body for like 40 minutes and then just boom back. And so I think that that's super cool. It's kind of like not everybody knows what's going on there, but if you can stay present with the work, it's fun.
I think every time I've left, my body's been on psychedelics. I mean, you kind of play around with that a little bit on mushrooms, but when you hit that DMT, man, it's like, boom, your body just is gone.
I've never done psychedelics in my entire life because I figure I'm kind of a little bit of an egomaniac, wanting to know that I'm accomplishing that. And I'm not knocking anybody, whatever somebody wants to do, great. Me specifically, I want to know that I'm attaining that exact same thing without having to know if I did it or not. Mm-hmm. And when we were in Peru, we were at an ayahuasca ranch, and there was all these photographs all over not photographs, paintings of people's experiences. And I'm standing there with my sister, and I'm like, I've seen that, I've done that, I've seen that. It looked like this. And the girl behind the counter goes, Jesus Christ, woman, how much ayahuasca have you done? And I go, none, I am ayahuasca. It just happens in my head. So and again, I'm not knocking anybody for a psychedelic. I just want to know, I just want to own it. If I can do that, I want to own that. So.
Well, DMT is probably naturally produced in your brain. So, I mean, you could just be harnessing the release of that maybe better than some of us can.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, I don't think that doesn't make anybody special, and it doesn't make anybody not special. For me as a practitioner, I want to fully know that I'm being able to pull that out of my higher self. I think it's like an athlete in any other way. People are like, hey, Suzanne, how do you get to do all that and see all that when people are dying and your work and blah, blah, blah? It's because I work at it. I train. Like anybody else does their training, I train a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm using performance-enhancing drugs. I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I'm doping.
And again, no judgment. I mean, if that's what you want to do, have at it. I just, I think I would die if I was on a mushroom. I don't know. I would, no.
Oh, you would just be smiling and giggling.
Yeah, it's not really that much of a big deal, actually. Mushrooms. No. I wouldn't do any of the chemical ones if I were you, but mushrooms are natural. They're just everything everywhere, Mushrooms it's the largest thing on the planet, so.
But I already see the mushroom talking to me, and I already see it before I even stick something in my mouth.
Yeah, totally. That's probably true, too, yeah.
It tastes terrible.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I mean, once you
just get high from the toxic overdose, basically. So
I think I like to just get high from trying shit and just seeing if I can do it. I mean, that's my natural high. I was in Peru just like not even 3 weeks ago, and I went into the jungle, and all of a sudden I just went out of body and totally went into the ayahuasca anaconda snake medicine, and it was crazy cool.
Yeah, cool.
And you don't have to take anything to do that if you can just train yourself to go there. And I think that that's super cool. Yep. But again, a lot of people like ayahuasca, and it's very healing for them, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
Right?
So back to your practice and the book, and you mentioned past lives a little bit in there. Touching back to that, there was a case study where you. So I guess I want to know how past lives can play in that letting go process, and then also that case study where you saw somebody's past life and it was corroborated by somebody else in the room.
Yeah, I am not what I would designate a past life practitioner. That said, I do tons of past life work, with my clients because it just naturally will go there if it needs to. So I've been made privy to lots and lots of, I see them as movies in my head or videos, fast clip videos, old fashioned, black and whites, kind of clip. And or I will go right into them. So I see them in many different ways, and lots of people can do huge amounts of healings with past lives. And I think that depending on your practitioner, that can be awesome, and it can be really beautiful experiences. At the very same time, I have worked on many people who have not gone to a good practitioner and have reactivated a past life scenario, meaning I've brought in everything. So when I teach past life, I teach it like a read-only PDF. Like, do not bring in anything but the information.
Huh.
Do you understand?
Yeah. I don't think we've ever talked about that, the opposite happening or that risk. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, let's pretend you were the cowboy and you had the hatchet in your back, and then you get done with that scenario, and all of a sudden you have horrible pain in your back for the next 5 days and you don't understand why, and you come see somebody like me and says, hey, you have an etheric energy-based hatchet in your back. What did you just do? I mean, this is really serious stuff because people are ignorant in terms of their practitioners and their practices. So if you're doing past life regression, please get a good practitioner or do a read-only PDF file kind of a situation in your head. We do not necessarily clear those past lives. So sometimes in the death process, when those veils are thinner in that case study situation, he will all of a sudden go, holy crap, I'm going back to that place in between lives where it was what we would consider hell. And then you add on top his Catholicism that says hell is real. So he was terrified because he was going to hell, not only in behalf of this life, but the other life. And so the study in the book tells how his face oracally merged into that other past life. And I could see him physically changing, as could my sister, who was with him in person. I was away doing it remote. So yeah, that was a really crazy one. I mean, and I basically clear the past life, and then the current life can die quicker.
And your sister mentioned his appearance before you told her what you saw, right?
Yeah, and I mean, she tag teams a lot with me because she's pretty psychic in terms of her own kinds of gifts. She's a shamanic practitioner for massage, but she can tap into my head pretty well. So I was remote, she was in person, so we were tag teaming on that one. So yeah, that was pretty cool. That was really cool.
Awesome.
Like I said, I've been privy to some really crazy stuff.
Yeah. Do you have any advice? This is kind of a weird question, but do you have any advice for people that have abortion regrets, or people that maybe have done that in the past and then they think about it in the future and maybe wonder about that?
I do, because I think, again, we have made things like, and this is not, again, to tell anyone how to believe. This is not for me to tell you what your God package is. My package of God is not a guy. He isn't a guy hanging on a cloud with a dress. There isn't that personality attached to that God source. When we made God a guy with a personality, we have a right and a wrong from source energy. So when we are talking about a decision on something as personal and intimate as that, we put a personality on right and wrong that will make that choice right or wrong. Therefore, that precipitates into many different arenas. In my experience, that soul contract will know exactly how to play that out. And oftentimes they aborted babies, stillborn babies, babies that have died in childbirth, miscarried babies, they all come into my healing room. And there is no right or wrong with that, ever. There's never a guilt. There's never a, why did you do that to me? It just doesn't happen. It's never happened. So I try my best to allow people to own their choices and relieve the guilt or the sadness or the seriousness of judgment before they get to their own death experience, because they will have to clear that.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So it's really best to just keep cleaning up your shit as you go, so you don't have to deal with all that at the end of the
clean your
road.
shit all day long, because I said that on a radio station once. He said, what's your best advice? I said, my best advice is act as if you're dying right now, because you are. So therefore, the more fear you release out of this meat body experience, the more easy life is. It's synchronistic, it's fun, it's joyful, it's amazing, you're healthy. And by the way, you'll die easier. So it's really amazing to me that we haven't figured this thing out. I mean, our death process is an extension of how we are living. So chakra work, clearing work, past life work, guilt, shame, judgment, all of those things are extremely important for us to get out of this meat frequency as we are living, and then that will assist in that death process.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know we're just about out of time. Before we're out of time, where do demons fit into this? Is there energy demon?
Is that a question from the chat?
It's a question from the chats. From Faux
Where
Turkey.
do the demons fit in?
Yeah, he asked. Well, he asked what are demons and are they real?
Oh, I totally believe demons are real, because why can't they be? When you've got source energy again, if you have light, you have to have dark. If you have good, you have to have bad, positive, negative, blah, blah. I mean, there has to be other forces. And why wouldn't the God source energy experience a whole bunch of shit and dark and yuck just as much as light and love? Because there's got to be polarity, right? I mean, we don't make this, if we would make this all about frequency, and literally understand that everything in our life is vibrational frequency that is always searching for a balance. It's always searching for a dark and a light. We wouldn't be so judgmental and scared. So yes, do demons exist? Sure. Do I have to play with them in my sandbox? No, absolutely not.
Is that where things like maybe addiction and alcoholism could be coming from? Like, you know, it's funny because we had kind of offhandedly call those people dealing with their demons.
Yep, very much. The addictive chakra, by the way, is the second chakra. That is the sacral chakra in your belly, which then directly relates to the next one above, which is your ego and power center. And those are supported by that first chakra, which is belief systems. So that person that is addictive has got a belief systems that I'm not good enough, or I can't be heard, or I can't be seen, because we're hiding something, right? And we're running from something. So those are those demons that we're usually just hiding from truth. We all have a primal wound. I mean, you could talk chakras on podcasts for I literally do an energy update on my website too, to just talk about the chakra system, because death and dying only comes after dis-ease. Disease comes from dis-ease in our chakra system. So we die according to our chakra dis-ease. So yeah, we definitely have demons in our belly because we're creating them, because we're not clearing the fear and finding our divine alignment with our truth.
What about like unhealthy guts? Like we're finding these days that the gut could be like driving more of our decisions than our brain, and we're cramming all this sugar and all this other crap into it, and all this processed, refined crap. And a lot of people have bad gut health. Can that like leak into the chakra?
Oh, well, it is the chakra, and it's totally breaking it down. And don't fool yourself that this gets bigger in terms of the programming. This is that collective consciousness programming. Again, go back to that word, those theys. The theys don't want us to be healthy. The theys want us to spend shitloads of money on medicines. So they're pumping chemicals into it, and we're dumb enough to eat them all. So, and we're also ignorant enough to just go, okay, you tell me I'm sick and I'm going to be sick. We don't metaphysically, and I'm not throwing out Western medicine, so don't misunderstand this. We do need to have doctors and listen to them, but we also need to listen to our higher self and say, hey, I can do this differently or cooperatively, or I can learn how to find the root of the problem energetically before it turns from dis-ease into disease. So there's many, many things, but the theys in the bigger scope of things, look at the billions and billions of dollars we spend on meds. We're a great market to stay programmed. We're a lot of programmed people down here that don't get it. So, but hey, you're also looking at somebody who will have those nights where I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to hunker down with a bottle of wine and eat a bunch of cheese and feel like crap in the morning. So, what do you do with that? You make decisions along the way, and sometimes those decisions end you up in a hospice bed, and sometimes they don't. So it's balance. Everything's balance in terms of my hope and my goal for people is find balance and get rid of the fear, We were not incarnated to be fear mongers down here. And yet look at our culture, and we're dying from stress and fear because that's the way these bodies are reacting to our thoughts.
Yeah.
So remember, we're holographic.
Fear's the mind killer.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Well, Susan, thanks for taking time from your sisters, your visit at your sisters, to join us on the show and talk about all this stuff. We appreciate it.
Make sure, let us know about your website and the other stuff you have going on, and maybe any trips, or you seem to do a lot of events and trips.
Yeah, maybe we got to do a contact at the cabin one day down the road.
Oh my God, that would be such a blast. Or maybe you got to come to the Palmer and we'll really rock it out there because it's super fun. Yeah, so it's Suzanne Worthley, and it's sworthley.com.
We should do that for Halloween.
My name, SWORTHLEY. ley.com. Can't spell my own name. And all of my book stuff is right on there. You can get it at anywhere. You can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but directly through my website is super easy. All of my events are posted on there. I do a tour to Peru every year and Sedona every year and all kinds of other events. And I have a live online Vibe Tribe community, too, to teach about Ascension. And there's so much free information on my website as far as Ascension. My Ascension blog in and of itself is insane if you ever want some good nighttime reading. Because there's people out there that are having unbelievable stuff go on and they don't have a clue why.
Awesome.
So, there's not a lot of stuff out there on the ascension process. And so ascension directly relates to death. And if we would understand that we are ascending, even though we are still dying, and we're dying as we're ascending back and forth, we could get a bigger picture on this, but there's not a lot of good information out there on ascension, period. And it is happening and it is real. So this is a subject that needs to be more talked about, as is death, to change that death culture and not make things so scary.
Does that sound like a new book coming up, or?
I have two. It's in my opinion, and hopefully the publisher is already urging, is to have an energy healer's book of, and the next one that I'm already in the midst of is an energy healer's book of empathing, because we don't understand empathing. We don't understand the difference between empathy and empathing. And so many of us are getting sick and dying again because we're empathing not only humanity, but the world itself and collective consciousness, etc. So that's one of them. And then the third one that's already in the works is the Energy Healer's Book of Ascension. But I do have a free Ascension ebook on my website already that really explains in some really great details on what's happening, vibrationally speaking, in terms of ascension. And again, this all has to do with this. It's all the same stuff. I mean, energy is energy, whether you're clearing a house or clearing an animal or clearing a cosmos or doing a timeline or helping somebody die. It's all the same stuff.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, and honestly, it was a fantastic book, and I highly recommend it, especially for people who have loved ones maybe that are sick or dying, or people that are afraid or in conflict with the process. For sure. Very helpful.
Did you, let me ask you quick if we have time, did you be able to go, oh my goodness, when I read that, I remember my dad did that? Because my goal in writing the part about what a psychic sees during this stage and that stage, what I see psychically and what your person is probably experiencing, is something that makes this book so unique, because you're sad or scared or angry or not there, etc. There's a million things going on. Your head does not necessarily know psychically what's happening to that physical meat body, and it's a fascinating piece to this book. And sometimes when you read it after the fact, you can go, oh my God, I remember when my dad did that. Did that happen to you at all?
A little bit, not a lot though, but it brought back more. It was probably brought back more about me, I think, and then his healing process, and maybe that I should have been a little more present. Like actually, it made me feel like I have some answers around my behavior afterwards and during the process. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
And that's why the book is good for anybody that's alive or going through the death process or has already gone through it. I mean, there's no timeline for this book. It's not, oh, I have to do it at this point. We're all going through the death process every day of our lives. And so it's very important for us to understand that concept. And so there's not a timeline of when you should read this, but I have had multiple people release grief or judgment or I should have because they read that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. I'm glad you asked that because it reconfirmed me some of the stuff I learned about myself for sure.
And mostly release, why did God, again, make it a guy, why did God take so-and-so, especially when it's a child, for example. Why did they take my kid? Well, there's reasons, and that's why the soul contract part of the book is really important.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, we'll have links in the show notes to that, your website and the book, and thanks for coming on.
Well, I really appreciate you guys reaching out, and maybe we can do some more fun stuff since we seem to have some serious crossover here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In arenas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if you ever want to go seriously play and suck into a rock in the cosmos somewhere, I'm always game. So.
Cool.
Sounds great.
Right on. Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay.
Say hi to your sister.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was our chat with Suzanne Worthley. What'd you think, buddy?
Yeah, I think it was good. It was good. I just kind of expected that from her book. That she'd be very outgoing and it would be a fun chat.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, not super serious and heavy like you would think, you know. But
It's a heavy topic, so you gotta kind of be able to have some fun with it, laugh and joke.
Yeah,
Like to think we could be able to do that a little bit around here.
yeah. I totally didn't expect the whole chakra thing and being playing such a part in the
You were
in
shocked.
the death. I was shocked, shocked. And also the part about letting go of the material, like that was a pretty big theme. It seemed like people have a hard time. I never would picture like when you're dying that you'd be worried about, you know, leaving your house behind or your, you know, like I always thought it'd be more about loved ones, but and then also the part about
Well, that could be considered part of the material in that sense.
yeah.
Because if a materialist isn't just your stuff, it's also the materialist of this world is all there is. So you're leaving behind all those people
Yeah.
would fit into that same.
Especially if you worked hard and gathered a lot, or you were powerful,
Yes.
so you had a lot below
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't beat that last level of
You're
Sonic
pretty
the
sure that-
Hedgehog.
You're pretty sure that your son's going to destroy your empire
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, yeah, my stuff. All that I worked for. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of stuff, so that's probably why I'm
Yeah,
thinking
that's
that.
good, so you don't
If
have to
I had
worry
built-
about it.
If I had built an empire.
You're building a
then-
media empire.
Yeah.
You don't have any
one day.
kids, so I just take it all.
Yeah.
Actually, my kids will take it all.
Yeah. And the other part
When we
was
go
there
down in a
was,
small plane crash, knock on wood. I ain't getting any small airplanes. Fuck that.
yeah, the
no
other
hot
part was
tubs,
just
no
the
small airplanes. What are the other ones?
giving weight bench press.
No bench pressing.
Yeah.
Best just to stay out of the gym altogether.
Yeah.
If you're gonna work out, just work out in your basement.
Yeah.
You get a weight set down there, but you get a public gym, especially you go like one of those all hours gyms. You go in there in the middle of the night, pew, pew, 2 to the head.
No, it's more about like somebody like pushing the.
Oh,
It's more about dying from the press, you know, the weight on your neck than somebody shooting. You're not going to shoot somebody while they're bench pressing. You can just let the weight go on them, right?
yeah, totes.
Yeah, totes.
You just get them.
Yeah.
That's how they get you. Those are the 3 major ways you get assassinated.
But then your throat chakra goes first that way.
then you don't have
Then
time
you're out
to
of
tuck your
balance.
way
Then
out
you're
of
all
it.
out of balance. You're supposed to go from the bottom up.
If that's, they could stop at that.
Yeah.
We get to live it. We just can't talk anymore. No more podcasting. That'd be it. Anyway, big thanks to Suzanne for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. We love you guys. Big thanks to you guys who do support. That's even better because without you guys, we couldn't pay the rent. We couldn't do the show. We couldn't afford the hosting. We couldn't fix all these fucking cords that are constantly breaking. And yeah, you just help. You're part of the fluid that keeps this ship going. Grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly today. You're going to feel a whole lot better about all the value you've been getting over the months, weeks, years. 405 shows. Grimerica.ca/support. Do all the other stuff in the show notes. Maybe you're a little low on cash right now. We get it. Maybe you can review the show. Share the show. Tell your friends about this motherfucker. Sign people up for the newsletter. Maybe you're like, I don't want to tell my friend about the show. It's kind of a weird thing to bring up. Just go to the newsletter page. Sign them up. Punch in their email. Now they're signed up for the newsletter.
There you go.
They're going to start getting newsletters from us. And they don't even know who signed them up. It's guilt-free. We won't rat you out. So do all that stuff. Support the show. We love you. Be kind to each other. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next week. Oh, we did get some interest this week from the chats here about $500 for a calf shot. Double calf shot.
What?
Think it's worth it?
Well, I'm gonna
think
give me
it's
some.
totally
Yeah, I need some notice.
USD.
I need some notice.
So that's
Should
the-
shave my legs and
There's some
tan
interest
tan
in the
up a little
chat.
bit.
So we'll start
Bulk
getting the
up,
calves
I gotta
ready.
shave and tan up a little bit, but 500, I'd probably do it for
We'll get
500.
Graham to bring his umbros and keep him here just in case that $500 calf donation comes in. We'll get him stand up on the table here doing some toe presses.
Yeah, I could do it. Yeah, I need a little bit of practice. I mean, I
Officially
haven't
turned
fucking
him
ran.
into a
I
piece
haven't
of
ran in
meat.
like 4 weeks. I'm still injured. So give me a chance to build him up back up a little bit.
From the crushing? Are you injured from the
I'm
crushing?
Injured from the crushing. Yeah, playing first hockey game in a couple days.
Are you? When? Will you help me do the live stream?
I'm out for the season.
Sure.
I'm out for the season.
We'll bring the computer and the
I'm out for
GoPro
this.
on the thing. Maybe like I'll stream it. You can run back and forth and catch the play.
Sure.
And I'll I'll get a mic and I'll announce it. I'll be the announcer guy. Oh, we got Dunlop over to. Do you guys have your names on your jerseys? Can you give me a name in the roster? Run down in the roster. This is gonna be great. We're gonna get more views on his hockey game than we get on our episodes. You watch. It's gonna be huge.
Sweet.
Yeah, totally. These guys ball hockey, just taking it fucking super serious and slashing each other.
Then we'll just follow
Crushing.
him all
He got
next
crushed
season.
at ball hockey.
Even my doctor said crushed. It was so funny. And the way he said it, like in a sarcastic kind of way, like I thought, did Darren? Like it was the same way you said it. It was hilarious. He goes, because you're crushed.
Maybe he listens to the show.
I know, I just totally thought of you.
Maybe the hockey games are just for supporters. Maybe the calf shots are just for supporters. Well, I guess by selling it for $500, that by definition does make you a prostitute.
It'd be hard to turn that down.
It would be.
No, he'd be like a model. It's not a
Oh yeah, that's
prostitute.
true. Yeah, he's not sleeping with
I'd like
them.
to lose a little bit more weight before I start.
Well, it's bound to happen.
I got some pills coming in, don't I?
Yeah,
Some supplements to help.
totally.
I got a
They
cold
actually.
pizza out there.
Where did we
Rido.
send him to? P.O. box. No,
Is
it's
that what they're
UPS.
filled
Will UPS go to the P.O. box? No, they're going to call one of us. They're going to end up calling whoever's number you put on there, probably mine, and I'm going to have to go down to fucking UPS.
No,
and
it
pick
should
up.
come. UPS should deliver to the post office box, I think. Yeah.
How they? Because DHL doesn't.
Yeah, DHL.
Are we going to switch the P.O. box to Chestermere now?
No.
We're just going to keep it in downtown Calgary. I was thinking that the other day. I mean,
Let's see what happens.
we stuck for a
I
year
gotta
at
go
least.
down there for a bunch of other stuff too. I'm gonna have to travel down there for all kinds of shit. So
I wonder if it's transferable or if we'll just have to wait till the year's. But the thing is, like, I think we tried to get it in Chestermere a couple of times and they were like out.
oh,
Yeah, like when I checked on it, there's none available right now.
wow.
So there's
Probably
that.
more expensive too.
But I wonder if you could just, well, I don't even mind them just forwarding it to my house. I just, we'll just give us a fake P.O. box, make it like whatever, forward to Darren Street.
Well, you could probably do that for like
And they just-
$80 a year.
They just get it at the post office box and I'll come pick it up.
Yeah, you can get forwarding. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But from what address? Does it have to be an address? Can it just be 123 Darren Street? So anything that comes to the post office from that forwards to my address and no one ever hears of the address?
Yeah,
No.
totally. Yeah, you put
I
in.
don't-
Yeah, you just put a forward in with the post
Yeah,
office.
but I don't think you can make imaginary addresses for that, can you?
Why would you make an No, you get it to come to your house wherever you are.
Yeah, you can
From
do
the,
that.
a
Why-
forwarder from the
Yeah.
P.O. box.
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
That is a fucking not bad idea.
It's like 80, I think it's like $80 a year or something.
I think it's 62.
Yeah, the more,
Maybe
the
it's-
longer,
okay.
the longer you go, the cheaper it is.
Because I
so-
had that forwarder when I
Yeah,
moved out of my
yeah,
last
exactly,
house, but I never considered that you could do that at the P.O. box. That's
Yeah,
genius.
that's pretty-
See, this is why I have you around. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into the live show. See you in 2 weeks.
Tuesday.
Oh, wrong mouse. Tuesday. We'll see you Tuesday. Another live show Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern.